Blend modes are when one layer affects the pixels in another layer by choosing something from this list that you find in the Layers panel. Now when I click here, you'll see that there are tons and tons in here. And as I always say, literally, the easiest way to learn these is to try one at a time and see what it does, and then find the ones that you like a lot and pretty much write a little recipe down in a notebook so that you know what the effect's going to be when you apply it in the future. So I'm only going to cover the most commonly used ones. I'm going to start from the top here, which is dissolve. Now you're not really going to see anything because it affects the edges. I'm going to move this down a little bit and I'm going to zoom in. And let me just go a little further in here. And we don't see anything, so I'm a little bit too far in. Let me see if I can get this to a point where we can actually see the dissolve. There we go. We can see the dissolve happening along the edge in this image. Now what I'm going to do is go to the categories now. As you can see, they're broken down into these little categories separated by the lines. But first of all, let me go ahead and just get that back the way it was, and we'll start off with the darken modes. Now what happens when you choose darken is that the pixels in the image, if they're darker than the ones in the layer underneath it, that pixel will remain visible. If the pixel is lighter than the pixels underneath it, it's turned off and you won't see it. What multiply will do is it darkens the pixels and gives you some really nice and intense shadows. And now you have a very angry sky. Color burn is really increasing the saturation, and it's like looking right into the sun and then looking away. Now of course don't do that. Not that I've ever done it. Now linear burn is like taking the image and then putting it into the sun and just kind of like letting it bake. And once again, you're going to get some very dark shadows this way. Let's move on now to the opposite modes that you'll find in the darken category, which are the lighten modes. Now lighten works in the exact opposite fashion of darken. Whereas if you have pixels that are lighter than the pixels on the layer beneath it, you see that pixel. And if it's darker, you don't. Screen mixes the pixels on the image in one layer so that it lightens them. Color dodge is going to give you a nice saturation and give you bright colors. And we also have something called linear dodge. It adds saturation as well, but nowhere near as powerful as the color dodge. So it gives you a little bit of a more realistic saturation in your colors. What we're going to do next is talk about the next few modes, which include overlay and all the way to some of the more interesting ones, such as difference and exclusion.